We stack our reservations. We're very strategic with our calendar, and we figured out how to stack it to where we don't have big gaps. For example, one of our properties, a 3-bedroom, which was our first large property that we started renting with a midterm model. For 2025, we just closed out with 355 booked nights.
Insane. That is wild.
Let me say that again. We just had 355 booked nights. And most of these were through Airbnb on this one property. 10 vacant days. And those vacant days were a couple days here, turnover. That's all it was.
Well, and that was because we typically allow for a 2-day turnover with that property.
And some of these people want to get in so bad that we actually were getting the cleaners, like we were rushing some of these turnovers and getting everybody like together so we could do some same day turnovers because people were trying to get in sooner. That's what we ended up with so low because there was so many people that wanted to get in sooner if they could. So
10 days of vacancy.
And there's no short term. I mean, you could have the best short term, like nicest place on the beach at the best price, and you're probably still going to have more vacant days than that because just the way that the turnovers are going to fall in the midweek. A good short term rental property is going to be booked about 22 nights on average if you take the whole year. So you're going to have your high season, low season, but for the whole year, you're probably looking at 22, running at max capacity, 22 nights if you're lucky. And that's a really good short term in a really good location at a great price.
Welcome back to the Broke Millionaires, where we document our daily struggles in building wealth while raising a young family. Join us as we talk creative wealth building for everyday people and couples that are struggling in a down economy. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Joshua Masari, and we'll be your hosts.
We're back with another episode.
Here we are again. No kids. This is amazing again.
Feels like a date almost, like a true date.
It's a middle of the day.
Middle of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Look at us with no kids. Look at me with no kids. You never have kids during the day.
It's true.
Let's be real. We didn't get to record last week when we had our sitter. We tried.
We got some content, but we didn't.
We did do some content.
We had some technical difficulties. I spent 2 hours trying to figure out our new software and never actually got to recording. That's okay.
The setup does take longer, I feel like. Do you feel like it takes longer here than it did when we were recording at home?
No, because I don't have to set everything up. It's just, it's new software that I'm having to like figure out.
So it's a you thing, learning the software.
Yeah, it's a me thing.
Okay. Just checking. Just kidding.
Thanks.
No
You
problem.
fire me? You want to hire a new co-host?
No, I don't want to do it because I definitely don't know the technology side of it. That's for sure.
But not doing the editing now, so I'm not up till 3 a.m. editing these. We have somebody else doing that. Kind of. We're working on it.
Yeah.
We're getting it figured out. So
we are in a phase now of we're taking one step forward and we feel like we're making really good progress. Decent progress. I won't say really good.
like light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, like, ooh, we can see it coming. And then we have 3 steps backwards.
Just in everything, it seems like. Business, life, family.
Yeah, what is it? Like, why cannot we not just...
It's got to be a 2025 thing. Didn't you say it's like the year of the pig or something? I don't know what you said it was, but
I think it was a snake.
Oh.
And next year, no, right? Wasn't it the snake? Yeah, because I think it was a shedding year is what it said. Like you're shedding, it was talking about like shedding friendships and things that are not serving you. And I don't usually get into this stuff, but I liked the 2026 is the year of the horse. And I wish I had notes on what the year of the horse was. Basically, it was like a
sounds
fruitful
better than
year.
a snake. So
Yeah, I mean, I hate snakes. I told you the number of, I mean, we know about my anaconda like dream from that movie when I was young, why I started having nightmares. But like I've had so many weird snake dreams. Oh, I'm just putting this together. I told you I had so many weird snake dreams this year. Yeah, that's a weird part of it.
Ooh.
That sounds like, I don't know. I don't like snakes, but okay, anyways. But the year of the horse is supposed to be a much better year. We talked that this was like our pruning year. We didn't want this to be our pruning year, but
We've been doing a lot of pruning.
we've been doing a lot of pruning. So this better like catapult us into 2026 and all the hard work and everything we've done. Right? It has to. It has to.
Well, everything that we're doing, all the groundwork that we're doing in our all of our businesses, we've got multiple businesses that we're just working on putting, SOPs in, getting, everything, all these processes in place to run more efficiently and built to scale. Like all this groundwork is going to pay off. It's just like, it's not something that you see immediate results on. So it's hard sometimes when you're in the trenches, even with the podcast and what we're building now, like having to learn social media. I had no idea. We have so much back end knowledge just from all these, people that we have in our mastermind that we're connecting with, and just all these little things that nobody tells you about, things you wouldn't know, just how to work the algorithm and how to, I mean, just for example, like we have a very small following because we just started our Instagram recently. We didn't even start really posting until a couple months ago, and we have a few hundred followers, which is pretty embarrassing, but you got to start somewhere. But our metrics, how we're growing, is in line or outpacing where we should be for a new account. We're getting 10 times more views on our posts than our following. And there's a lot of big name people that have 25, 30, 50,000 followers that get less views on their posts and things because they're not working the algorithm and it's not getting pushed out. So just little things like this, marketing things on the back end, knowledge that we have. Maybe we'll start a social media consulting company because we've got all this knowledge now that we didn't have before. I don't know, who knows, but it's just a lot of intricate things that people don't ever talk about.
Because we need one more thing to start doing.
Nah,
just add it to the list.
Just kidding. Let's not do that.
You know what? It's funny. I was asking, I saw someone post, they asked ChatGPT what their theme song was. So I asked that.
Uh-oh.
And it gave me 5. So the first one was Unstoppable, which I was like, okay, Unstoppable by Sia. And I feel like that's so on brand with like ChatGPT obviously knows us now of like what we do with the podcast and building wealth. And so it was like crazy to see that it sees the effort we're putting into, right? But then it was funny because it went through a couple different ones and it ended with Good Life by One Republic, which is supposed to be like our payoff for everything we've done. And I was like, oh, I like, it starts with like all the work that we're doing and like what we're going to get to. But then it prompted me to keep going with ChatGPT. And it was like, will we make it? Because we're in this like really challenging season right now. I mean, it's been a very long season of this. And one of the things that I liked that it said is people who quit ask, should I bother? People who are exhausted say, is it worth it?
Mm.
It's good, huh?
Yeah, I like that.
I know.
It's funny because ChatGPT, it's like people are relying on it. I mean, people are relying on it way too much for things they shouldn't, but we rely on it in our businesses, and just the things that we're starting to lean on AI for is pretty crazy. Like, we've talked about we're implementing AI into the printing business to basically replace me and take over on a lot of the day-to-day small tasks that take up a lot of time and pulls me away from building and focusing on the business. So just implementing that, and I use ChatGPT. I outran my 5 free prompts a day or downloads or whatever really quick once I started using it. And I only started using it a few months ago. It was really, honestly, it was Dan Martell that like he hounds that into everybody in his coaching program is like, use ChatGPT, use Chat. It's a free program or $20 a month, but you get so much like work out of it. Like you will make yourself way more efficient. And I asked it recently how often I used it. And it said on average 30 to 50 times per day. Get my $20 per month value out of it, but it has definitely made me a lot more efficient. Just things that I would do for work and marketing and whatever that would take me a lot of time. Or I have a lot of Excel spreadsheets that I work with that I get from clients for mailing and stuff. And a lot of the manual stuff I had to do in it, it will just take it and do it in seconds. It's just definitely making things more efficient.
Yeah, I think it's been really, really helpful once I kind of understood how it works, and it's crazy how it gets to know you. Like it's wild.
One of those anti-ChatGPT, like resisting, like I will say this, if you don't get on board, you are going to get left behind because it is advancing so quickly. We were just talking about people are now using ChatGPT for their holiday photos instead of paying a photographer. Like it's now replacing photographers, which is sad, but I think they'll still be at place. But I think it's going to shift how that works because you can instantly, put your face and your kid's face and everything into it, and it'll put together a Christmas photo shoot for you.
It's crazy because you really are not going to be able to know what's real and what's not anymore. Like the pictures my friends were sending of their family's Christmas cards. It's like you would have thought they spent all this time and money like getting everything ready and doing that, and it's
getting
like
dressed and
getting dressed,
clothes,
going to this location that was beautiful, and it was just literally.
So why go through the process and the trouble and trying to schedule it and like it's.
But like really questioning what's real, and like I think that's where we talk about like this community that we're building like is going to be so important to have like real face to face connections and just those interactions and networking and knowing that there's real people behind on the other side of it versus not knowing.
Yeah, that's a good point because one thing that ChatGPT or any AI can't do is the emotion. It takes emotion out of it, it thinks logically and it's data driven, but it's not going to sympathize with you or being like, oh, like I've been through this, like we've actually been there, we understand that. It'll reason and it'll come up with comforting things that'll say to you, like you're going through this, but it's going to be okay. And it's actually pretty good at touching and invoking emotions, but it doesn't think emotionally and it can't relate to you emotionally. So that's something that you only get that from peer to peer.
Yeah. I will say when I was going through asking, like, are we going to make it? I was like shocked with what the response was. I was like, this is almost like a therapist on the other side of it, like a very logical, like way of thinking about it. But it was interesting. Let's see, what other updates do we have? We had a really fun holiday party with Summers Capital a couple weeks back.
Shout out to Rich Summers. So he leads the mastermind that we're in, just kind of helping us with the podcast and the community that we're putting together. And this is something that we don't have experience in. So we joined his mastermind. We're really leaning into that. And all the educators that he brings on have been just a huge, huge help. So meeting these people face to face, some of the other people that are doing big things in the space that we are and also other spaces or lateral spaces. We met some people we'll be doing interviews with some new strategies that we're excited to bring on the show. So that's something that we're not currently doing. So that's going to be fun. But just being in the room with people, maybe have made it or successful, but also that are in our stage, starting out whatever it is that they're building, and just everybody that's very motivated and kind of has that common goal of just kind of coming together in the community and supporting each other and just learning. So that was nice to get together with them.
And not even just a common goal, but going through similar struggles. Like, that's really what I took away from that night of, like, getting face to face with some of, the people we have on our calls and just getting to chat with them more is their mindset was more aligned with, what we're doing and just kind of the entrepreneurial spirit and building something is if you don't have a circle of people that are doing something similar in that, building something, it's hard to understand and really grasp the sacrifices that we're making. And so it was nice to be in a room with people that have made or are making similar sacrifices that, when we're going through hard times, the first thing out of their mouth isn't like, well, we'll sell one of your houses. It's like their response was, yes, this is so hard, and like understanding and they have the same thing where, they have people around them that would say the same thing to them essentially, and just how their mindset to push through is so different and understanding like, why can't you just sell a house? Why doesn't it work that way?
And you bring up the selling the house, and we get that from friends and family a lot, like because they know that we're so our problem is that we're cash broke. We've just this cash flow issue, just with our businesses, just the economy and everything, kind of like, not that that's an excuse, but that was kind of like the trigger. And it just kind of all hit at once. And while we were in the middle of a big project that had a lot of carrying costs. And so like everything just hit at once. But through all of this, like, it's funny because even though we're struggling day to day on just simple things because we don't have the cash flow, our wealth has continued to build, it's kind of funny. And a lot of people don't understand that. Like, we keep getting wealthier even though we're struggling. So
Well, and that's, we did a post about that, about our equity and how that has jumped up. And that's what prompted a couple of people to say, like, if you have this equity, why would you not just sell your house? Why would you just sit on that essentially, like not understanding?
yeah, and there's a couple reasons. I mean, one, it defeats the whole purpose of what we're doing and what we're building. We're trying to build long-term wealth. If we did that, that's a Band-Aid. And then what happens when that runs out? Now you lost that asset that's not continuing to grow. It's not spinning off any profit or any income anymore. That's just it's stepping backwards a lot, and it's hard to buy properties, especially in our market. The other thing that people don't understand is that if we sell a property, it would trigger a lot of capital gains that we have tax liability on. So we have a lot of equity that we've built up in these properties. Now you got your tax base as what you paid for the property and money that you put into it and renovations, and that's your tax basis. And anything above that is your capital gains that you would pay taxes on if you sell. And most of our properties have so much of that capital gains equity that we've outrun the exclusion. Like if we had lived in it because if you live in it for 2 of the last 5 years, you do get an exclusion on that. But for a married couple, it's only up to 500,000, which is a decent chunk. But all of our properties have outrun that on the ones that we have lived in 2 of the last 5 years, which I guess is only one property at this point. But like there's so much equity that we've outrun that, and we would still have like hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes we would have to pay. So it's like, yeah, it might help a little bit, but the amount of taxes we have to pay, like, wouldn't really help us out that much. And it's an income producing asset. So it's better off to just let it ride, let it keep building equity and cash flow.
Like you said, it would be a Band-Aid. It's not going to fix things. It would be a very small Band-Aid for right now. And with all the sweat equity that has gone into these projects, like, to think we would just completely have thrown that away, and every weekend that you spent working on these houses and all that time and effort that went into it would be for absolutely nothing, is like, that's gut-wrenching to me.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because there are people that say like, oh, you guys bought at a great time and you had like when things were going crazy the last 5 years. Yes, we have had some of that. But there's really three ways. There's three different types of appreciation, and I don't think a lot of people know the differences. So, yeah, there's market appreciation where there's just more buyers than there are supply, and it causes prices to go up. That's when you see prices getting over, bidding 200,000 over asking or 20% over asking, whatever. Like we saw that a few years ago. There is some market appreciation that we got when things are crazy, interest rates are low and people are buying. And so, yeah, you can say that's luck, but we made the sacrifice to buy these properties and got into these properties before that happened. So, that's just, yeah, maybe it was a little bit of luck, but we put ourselves in luck's path. But the other part is there's also inflation. And not very many people talk about this. I'm surprised how few people talk about this, but in the last 5 years, the dollar has lost 20% to inflation. What that means is that 20% of your appreciation on your home in the last 5 years isn't because the market went up and because your house is actually worth 20% more. It may be that on paper, but it's because the dollar lost 20%. You have a house that's worth $1 million today, like appraisal value, $800,000 house in 2020 terms, because the dollar is only worth 80% of what it was. So yes, that's still considered appreciation because it's on the balance sheet. But really what that is a hedge against inflation. So if we had money just sitting in the bank, it would have lost that 20%. But because it was in a property that kept up with inflation, it's a hedge against it, and you're keeping up with inflation that way. And real estate's not the only way to do that. Gold, things like that, assets that keep up with inflation will help that. But you see people that just have cash, or they're in investments like bonds and things that are like 4% or something like that. Inflation was higher the last 5 years. Your 4% investment actually lost money, lost value, if you really break it down. But the third appreciation, and this is the one that we really focus on, is forced appreciation. This is where the nuts and bolts of our strategy really comes into play, and where we really build our wealth is we are pushing appreciation quickly, strategic renovations, making this a higher, like we take the ugliest house on the street and make it the nicest house, make it very desirable. And we're doing this we don't just go crazy on our budget and just buy the most high-end stuff. We're very strategic. We want it to look nice, but we're also getting the stuff that's in the budget that we have set to make sure that we're not spending more than we're pushing appreciation.
Absolutely. The budget is key with this. And I think that, we are very conscious when we're making these design choices of what we're using with materials where we,
I
like
got to
you
reel
said,
you in once in a while, but to be fair,
not bad.
your design, you have a very good eye for design. And so you know what's going to do well in the market, what's going to get high rents, and what's going to get that appraisal. And then I'll figure out a way, okay, well, can't do it this way, but we can do it with this material that maybe looks like that $20 per square foot tile, but it's $3 a square foot, but it looks the same because it's a replica of it. Maybe it's not flown in from Italy, but it looks like it, and no one else is going to really, who really cares?
Truly, who really cares? And also,
unless this is your forever home and you have to know, but like for what we do, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. So we're finding those ways to force that appreciation economically.
And like we talk about a lot is like, these are rentals, so we need them to be durable more than anything. So we need these, it needs to look nice, but it has to be durable. We don't need,
has to stay looking nice.
Yeah, exactly. It has to stay looking nice through renters, through, we obviously have 4 young kids. Our houses get up completely destroyed with us living in there. So we kind of have that when we go into the design and putting together these homes of.
Yeah, that's our basis. If it's like our family proof, then it'll probably work for any family, because we are very hard on. I hope there's no landlords that are future landlords of ours that are hearing this, but yeah, our kids are just they're just fun.
They are fun. They're kids. They're not any harder than
The
honestly,
last tenant that we had in the house that we're in now had as many kids, and the place looked immaculate when they moved out, so they did a much better job than we're doing.
their kids were older.
No. They had a 6-month-old when they moved in.
A 6-month-old, but
Okay,
the
fair
other
enough.
kids were older. So, we have a 5, 3, 2, and 6-month-old, and I will say I think that our kids have an appreciation for what we do, like, more so than a lot of other kids. Like, I think that they do understand it. I think that it could be a lot worse, so we have to count our blessings on that with the houses.
Fair enough. Just a quick disclaimer. The information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions. Your individual circumstances may differ and require specific strategies not discussed here. Now, let's get back to the show.
So we're going to jump into today one of the topics we get a lot of questions about, and still I feel like we talk about it a lot, which I'm surprised we haven't done an episode on this yet because we talk about it literally every episode, but it's co-hosting and just like how we do our co-hosting, what it is exactly, and kind of walk through step by step how we get this set up and just dive deeper into it than we have because
And we talk about this almost every episode we touch on it because this has been such a hot topic for us just in the business that, again, we never went into midterm rentals. And we do this only with midterm rentals, but we never went into it thinking we were going to co-host. It's just something that kind of came out of it. And now we got this business that's growing outside of that initial strategy that just kind of spun off of it. And it's been doing really well. And it's one of those things that people don't know a lot about because it's so new in the industry, but we get a lot of questions about it. You know, I'm in a lot of midterm rental groups that are working on building co-hosting and learning about it. There's a lot of realtors that don't understand it. It's not property management. It's a little different, and there's some nuances that make it different, but it's a different type of manager, if you will, because a realtor, a standard realtor is typically not going to have these type of leads that are going to be looking for a 30 to 60, 90-day contract. They're used to the long-term thing, or just like going on Airbnb and doing short-term Airbnb where you're just renting for a weekend or whatever. So it's just kind of this mid ground that not a lot of people are aware of. So we're just trying to bring awareness and show people what we're doing and our processes and how we're doing it and what's working for us.
yeah. When did we start the co-hosting? I'm trying to remember when we got our first property.
This summer. Yeah. It was a lot in the last 6 months.
Oh my gosh, it was.
Yeah,
You're
we have
right.
not been doing it for very long. Pretty new for us. I mean, we've been doing the midterm rentals for a while, and it's just kind of, we incorporated that because it's not much different than what we're doing. We're just doing it with properties that we don't own, but we haven't really been doing it for that long. And we've got a handful of properties that we're working with already. And, you know, we keep getting referred out and getting more leads on this. So it's definitely, and I'll say like, you know, Airbnb short-term rental, people are much more familiar with that. And I think a lot of people know what the arbitrage model is. And arbitrage, for those that aren't aware, is where you go to a landlord, a long-term rental landlord, and you rent the house from them, but you get like what's called a master lease. So you're renting it from them and you let them know what's going on. You got to find someone that's okay with it. But then underneath that, you're subleasing it basically, or you're going on Airbnb and you're renting it as a short-term rental, or people do this as a midterm rental as well. I don't think it works as well. It can work in certain places, but it doesn't seem to be as profitable as the short-term model. But even with the short-term quickly going away, it was really popular. Kind of started 10 years ago, about 5 years ago, got really popular. And the short-term market has gotten oversaturated. There's been a pretty big pullback the last year or so in the short-term rental market. There were a lot of companies that built up these arbitrage. They got just started doing hundreds, thousands of properties, like got really big doing arbitrage. So they didn't own any properties and they were just short-term Airbnb on these leases. And two of the largest companies just filed bankruptcy this year. I think it was Chapter 11. They just restructuring. But problem is with that model is if your rental income goes down and you're not renting these out as much, whether it's midterm or short-term, your monthly rent doesn't change. It actually goes up in most cases because a lot of times they're locking in longer lease terms because they don't want to do just 12 months. You got to furnish it and set it up and you got to build up your business with that property. So a lot of times these are like 5+ year leases. and there's an escalator in it so that the owner is getting increased revenue or increased rent each year. So you might have a 3, 5, 10% increase each year. So their rent keeps going up and their rental income is going down. So a lot of them are just running into trouble and people are getting out of it and just kind of getting. The other thing too is that a lot of cities are outlawing short-term rentals altogether. And so a lot of these companies or people that are arbitraging in those markets all of a sudden can't do that anymore.
Yeah, that's a lot of liability there. I think that's one of the reasons why co-hosting was so attractive is it's a much safer model with a lot less liability than the arbitrage model.
Right. Yeah, because you're not committing to this lease. It's got to work for you and the owners. It's got to be a two-way street. But if somebody can get help with that property and you're keeping it rented for them, it can make sense for both sides. So it's really a win-win when it's done right.
I feel like in that sense it's similar with working with the owner, but we'll kind of dive in deeper in this episode of what this looks like and exactly how we set it up and what those kind of contracts look like and so forth that we're putting together.
And I would say one of the big things that we tell people that are looking to get into this, I always say, and this is how we started out, we had our own midterm rentals for a couple year and a half before we started doing co-hosting. But I always tell everybody, you need to have your own property, whether you own it or something that you manage or, with a family or whatever. You need to get good at your operations and build your lead network. And we're going to focus more on midterm because that's what we know. The short term, we don't do that. It's just not worth it to us. I think it's in a lot of scenarios, it's actually less profitable to do short term than it is midterm.
For co-hosting specifically.
Owners, well, yeah, because you're spending a lot more time. So if you look at all the time and costs you have in that, it's just not worth it. For us, it's not worth it. With a busy family, it's not worth it for us. Not saying that there aren't other people that aren't successful at it, but for us, it just doesn't make sense. The midterm is just so much less work. It's still a lot of work on the marketing and you're still setting up at the beginning. But when you have a guest come in for 3 months, you got, 4 or 5 turnovers a year versus 4 or 5 per month or even more sometimes. And that's just a lot of work because the turnovers are a lot of work, especially the way that we do it. So we always tell people you need to own your own property and be operating and get good at filling your property, figuring out your processes and get that in before you start taking on other properties. It's if you don't have your processes figured out, it's going to be a mess and owners aren't going to be happy with the way you're doing things. And if you're not getting leads to fill properties, they're going to have a vacancy and that's not going to bode well and you're going to end up getting fired.
Yeah, that's the biggest part of it. Like you said, like we have more leads than we're able to fill right now, which is wild.
That's the one thing is we built up in our market, we built up our lead network and we got to where we had way more leads coming in than we had properties for. And so we're able to fill other owners' properties very quickly because of all these extra leads. We get leads on our specific properties. Even on Airbnb, we have leads. So we do a lot of insurance placements. And so there's a lot of companies that we work with and we have properties in their database and we actually know them personally and work with a lot of these people. And so they'll come to us when they have a need, when they have a family that's a displaced family from an insurance claim or a corporate stay or something like that. We also, even on Airbnb, we get, because of our properties are renovated really nicely and have a lot of demand for them, we get leads for our properties when they're booked. People are like, hey, is this going to be available? When will it be open? Even though we've got somebody in there, now we have a hot lead that needs a place. And so we can move those leads to other properties that we co-host for. And so that's kind of how we built up our lead network. We built up our lead network first. We were getting way more leads than we had properties for, and we can't buy properties fast enough, at least not in this market.
Yeah.
So the co-hosting is a way for us to be able to capitalize on our leads that we're bringing in and help other owners that may be struggling to get the properties full, because a lot of people that get into midterm rentals find that it's not, if they were doing short term, they have to switch because the city changed. They don't know how to fill it. It's not the same. You don't just put it on Airbnb and it's just going to be booked all the time.
It is not the same. It is not the same in how it's furnished, how it's marketed. Like nothing about it is this. It's not the same client or guests that you have coming in. Everything's so different about it. It really is.
Yeah, it's not. You can't take the same Airbnb that looks like a bachelorette party house and put that on as a midterm rental and do well, because that a lot of times that doesn't do well, because that type of property is great for somebody coming in for the weekend, but for somebody that's bringing their family in for a few months at a time, that's probably not going to be that appealing to them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, I think back when we kinda started all this with our first house, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at that point when we were redoing the house, midterm rental wasn't even really on our radar. Weren't we just at that point trying to do a long-term lease?
Yeah, so that's a good point. All of our properties, when we buy a property, we work our numbers backwards with long-term rents in mind because long-term rents are never going away. We always work backwards like, okay, we think if we renovate it to this level, we can get this amount and we'll work backward. Do the numbers make sense? Is it going to pay for itself? And then if it does, then it makes sense to move forward with it. Well, now our strategy is we'll go ahead and rent it or furnish it. And we still like way before we do this, we still go back and forth. We always end up going midterm because it ends up being so much more profitable. But we do weigh out the pros and cons. But our numbers are done as a long-term rent. And then we furnish it and then we're getting much higher rents with the midterm model. So it's extra cash flow and it's just great. But we don't know the laws allow for it. But as we see all the short term getting shut down, like maybe, someday their laws start changing and now you have to do 90 days or 60, or they completely change it to where you can't do it. So our fallback is to go back to long term if we have to, but we already know that the property will pay for itself in that scenario. And so we're in good positions in our properties.
Definitely. It's funny too to think that we started out with that goal in mind, but then it evolved to like travel nurses was the first thing you had brought to me with the midterm rental. That was kind of what sparked that idea of doing because we had our cottage and kind of that guest house. But then seeing how it's evolved from the midterm into the co-hosting is just kind of it's like
And yeah, the fun
kind of
thing
fell
is
into.
for our market, we do very few nurses. We just found that like we get a lot of other people that we didn't even think needed this type of housing. So it's a lot bigger than just nurse. And our properties are booked so far in advance because we do renovate them and they are nicer. We have more demand. They typically get booked 4 to 6 months in advance. Sometimes even farther. We've got some of our properties getting repeat customers now. They'll book it a year in advance and just to lock in, that 3 months that they want for the winter or whatever. But
That was cool to have
yeah,
a repeat
yeah.
customer come in and know and do that in advance. That was a really like cool moment, I think, for
Yeah, just seeing the demand and like people appreciate what we're putting out there and well, we've got we've got a couple of those now. What we do is we get these properties to where there's a lot of demand. They're getting booked 4 to 6 months in advance. A lot of times with travel nurses, they don't get their orders or where they're going until like a couple of weeks before they start. So they're more last minute. So we get a lot of them reaching out to us, but we never or rarely have availability. Sometimes somebody will cancel for whatever reason last minute and there'll be a month that'll open up or here or there. And then we'll always end up filling those with a travel nurse in that scenario. But very rarely do we have availability that close. And we stack our reservations. We're very strategic with our calendar and we figured out how to stack it to where we don't have big gaps. For example, one of our properties, a 3-bedroom, which was our first large property that we started renting with a midterm model. For 2025, we just closed out with 355 booked nights.
insane. That is wild.
Let me say that again. We just had 355 booked nights, and most of these were through Airbnb on this one property. That's 10 vacant days, and those vacant days were a couple days here, turnover. That's all it was.
Well, and that was because we typically allow for a 2-day turnover with that property.
And some of these
And
people want to get in so bad that we actually were getting the cleaners, like we were rushing some of these turnovers and getting everybody like together so we could do some same day turnovers because people were trying to get in sooner. So that's why we ended up with so low because there was so many people that wanted to get in sooner if they could. So
10 days of vacancy.
and there's no short term. I mean, you could have the best short term, like nicest place on the beach at the best price, and you're probably still going to have more vacant days than that because just the way that the turnovers are going to fall in the midweek. A good short term rental property is going to be booked about 22 nights on average. So if you take the whole year, so you're going to have your high season, low season, but for the whole year, you're probably looking at 22, running at max capacity, 22 nights if you're lucky. And that's a really good short term in a really good location at a great price. When you're evaluating short term versus midterm, you really got to look at the vacancy because that vacancy will kill your short term numbers.
When we first were looking at the numbers, did you have a number in mind of what your goal was in terms of number of vacant nights for the midterm?
And I don't want to promise anybody looking for a co-host in our market that we're going to get you 355 days because I hope we can repeat that and we're going to try. And actually, to be honest, we've already booked it all the way through April with no gaps, same type of gaps. And we have someone looking to book it for 4 months stacked right on top of that. So we will actually that'll get us to like mid-September without any gaps. So I mean, it gets us almost through the whole year with repeating what we just did. But we typically say, and we run our numbers based on 10 months of occupancy. So that's kind of calculating, okay, we usually do like 4 to 6 turnovers a year. And then we do like 1 to 2 weeks in between each one, because if your contract ends, you get it turned over, and some of these insurance claims take a couple weeks to get approved sometimes. Sometimes you're waiting. But we've just been very fortunate. And with our lead network, we've got so many people, so many leads that we've been able to accumulate for this property, or just the properties that we have, that we're cutting those gaps down. When we're talking to new co-host opportunities, we typically tell them 10 months is what you can expect. And then we try to obviously over deliver, but 10 months is kind of the expectancy on that.
Yeah, that was wild. I can't believe that we've only hit 10 days. That's great. It's amazing. I'm not complaining at all. It was so that was great to hear.
So if you're looking at becoming a co-host or want to get into this, once you have your processes figured out on your property that you're managing, you need to find your advantage. Why would somebody have you co-host it versus doing it themselves or having another co-host? Because there's a lot of people getting into this. A lot of people, realtors that or property managers will also do midterm rentals. There are some that are specifically focused on midterm and they've got those leads built up. But most realtors that are just a property management company are not going to have the expertise or the lead network to be able to fill these properties. I think that's what a lot of people run into. We've had people that didn't like our fees or didn't like, the way we did things or whatever. I'm like, I'm just going to have a realtor do it. It's okay, that's fine. And then they come back to us because the realtor can't fill it and they were vacant for 6 months because they don't have the leads. They just put it on the MLS or put it on, Airbnb and just let it go. And they're not optimizing their listing. They're not doing the things that these midterm renters are looking for. And they don't have those additional leads coming in from the insurance placements and things like that. So you really got to find your advantage. And I would say ours is definitely, we've got a few things, but the lead network is definitely the big selling point. Like, hey, we have a lot of leads in our market. We're going to be able to get your property filled.
I think that's the key point right there is the leads, because like you said, you can't just throw it on the MLS and think that people are going to book you that way for a midterm rental, because it just doesn't work. We've seen it, right? We've seen these properties that are just sitting for months at a time and that we probably could have easily filled with our network.
Yeah, and we see it all the time. Like, we should reach out to them because like we could fill that quickly. But that's definitely been our advantage. And that's a big concern for a lot of owners is, I don't want vacancy, or they've tried it themselves and they can't fill it. And they've had 3 months of vacancy and they're freaking out because they've got a mortgage and they're losing money every month. And so they're like, I'm just going to should I just long-term rent it? Because I know I'm getting, the long-term rent is safe. It's comfortable because you do understand it. You know it. People it's been around forever. You're getting monthly rent, and then maybe on your turnover, you might have a few weeks or a month or whatever. But then you're getting 12 months of solid rent. So it's comfortable for people, but that's not what makes you money. Being comfortable doesn't make you money. When you get uncomfortable, that's when you start making more money.
Yeah. You got to be willing to take that chance a little bit. And it can be risky for sure, but the opportunity is definitely there to make more.
We go through the same thing. We're like some of our bigger properties have bigger carrying costs. We're like, maybe we should just do the long-term rent because it's safer and it sounds nice. And then we end up getting a midterm rental, and then all of a sudden, then the leads start coming in. And people start to hear about the house, and we start getting more leads. We just get more demand, and then we get more demand than that house can handle, and then we start using those leads for other people's properties. So It's always worked out, and I think you just got to go for it. Can't try it for a month and see what happens, and then give up on it. You got to really give it time, especially depending on the time of the year. There is an uptick in demand in the summer, and then it kind of falls off going into the holidays, and then it picks back up again. There's insurance claims. Those are all, you never know when those are. So those are just kind of all over the place. But, just giving it a short run sometimes isn't the best. Sometimes you have to go through that pain to get through in your market. We've been very fortunate. We usually rent houses if we're living in it, before we even move out. We've been pretty fortunate in that. But, then we've had the next one took maybe a little longer than we were, didn't take 2 days. It might have took a couple of weeks. And so we've had those scenarios that we've been through as well. But overall, in the long run, we've just found it's a really good market to get into.
And like you said, that has worked for us, but we would never overpromise that to someone else. I think understanding the short-term and midterm market wherever you're located is so important, and really, it's not going to work everywhere, right?
Yeah,
We've talked about
that's
that.
the other thing is just evaluating if it's going to work or not. So if you're looking at co-hosting, or even getting into this, don't think that it's just going to be successful no matter where you're at. And if you're looking to co-host, don't overpromise on a market you're not familiar with.
Yes.
So we're very familiar with our market and we know what we can fill. We've tested some other markets and not done as well with this. So like you need to make sure you know your market, you know the product, and you know who's looking, and have that lead network in that market. I think that's really crucial because it doesn't work everywhere. And you're going to have different type of leads in different markets, but just knowing what's going to work and where it's going to work. I will say midterm doesn't work everywhere. It's not. There are places that are better short-term rentals, and there are places that are better long-term rentals, and doesn't work for it. So it doesn't work for everything. I would say not every property type is a good one.
I was going to say that's a big piece too. It has to be kind of that sweet spot in the property, because we've noticed that too, where maybe it's too big of a house or too small of a house. It's not, renting in the right way. The property is key for sure.
Yeah. So one of the ways you can do that is you look in the market that you're in, and you can go on Zillow or whatever and see how many, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, and find out what the majority of the people there are. Because insurance claims if somebody has a 4-bedroom and they get displaced, they're going to need a 4-bedroom. So you can kind of get an idea of what the market is. For our market, we found that 2 bedrooms don't do as well. They do better with international travelers, but for the families and for people that we in our lead network, the 2 bedrooms just do not fit very well, and we have not cracked the 2-bedroom market.
Yeah, we really haven't.
I don't know if there is one. I don't know if we just haven't figured it out, or if there's just not enough demand for the 2 bedrooms. But we have an apartment building in Texas that we've done some midterm rentals with, and the 2-bedroom, same thing there. There was just very little demand, and then the 1-bedrooms there were really, really hot. So,
I mean, this is for our market specifically, but I think it's, we know that our studios and 1-bedrooms do well because of people traveling solo, and then it jumps into the families, right? That 2-bedroom is more of like a roommate type situation, right? I mean, wouldn't you think so?
Yeah, roommate situations are the ones that we've co-hosted for. We've found the most luck with international travelers.
Yeah.
So they'll come with a family that's traveling. A condo or an apartment might be okay. Maybe they don't need as much parking because they don't have 3 cars. So they've got just 1 vehicle because they're coming from wherever for a month. And that kind of seems to be the biggest genre that works for the 2-bedroom. But we just haven't, that's not our lead network. And so it's more relying on Airbnb for those type of leads. So if you have a leads of international travelers, you might be able to do really well with something like that. You got to know your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah,
and that's
definitely
not a strength of ours. So.
Yeah, we're still working on that one for
I
sure.
think we're gonna stay away from 2 bedrooms moving forward, or unless it's like something that's like right by the beach and you're gonna be able to rent it and not have an issue. But they definitely are more difficult in our market.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk too about our processes with co-hosting, because I feel like you've really come up with a really unique process for us, and I think that that's important to touch on.
This is stuff that we do with our properties, and we've kind of incorporated that into our co-hosting. Well, one of the things that we learned early on was that sheets are a nightmare, trying to keep sheets clean. They get stuff spilt on them, they get nail polish on it, they get hair woven into it. I mean, we've been to nice hotels and very clearly there was blood on the sheets that didn't come out. And it's just like...
Do you remember that?
I do remember that. And it ruined the whole trip. And we learned early on that trying to keep sheets clean is very difficult, and it just was not worth it. We were throwing away sheets constantly. So what we decided to do, and I don't know anybody else that's doing this.
Let me start by saying this is controversial. People get very upset with us for this.
Yeah. We do not reuse sheets. Every new guest that comes in gets a brand new set of sheets and a brand new duvet cover.
This would be a huge selling point for me reading this in a listing, by the way. And you too. This would be like,
I like
what?
when I do a vacation rental. Sometimes I want to take my own sheets. So I'm like,
you do bring our own sheets.
I do actually do that sometimes. We put this in all of our listings, and people love it because they are getting a brand new set of sheets that no one else has touched, and the duvet cover too. So we reuse the duvet, but the duvet cover. So when you're sleeping, nothing that you're touching has touched anybody before, and people love that. We're not putting super, 8,000 count Egyptian cotton sheets or whatever. I don't even know what the count
800.
800. 8,000 would be really nice.
8,000. Yeah, that must be some.
So we're
really
not spending a lot of money on sheets, and we were originally buying nicer sheets, but it was just like we were having to get rid of them because it had stains or had stuff that we couldn't get. Like, it was just not worth it. So we just buy Amazon Basics. It's $14.23 for a queen set of sheets.
I will say, though, I also get so many requests on where we get our sheets from. People love them.
It says Amazon Basics right on it.
No, I've had multiple people say, like, "We love the sheets. Where did you get them from?"
Because it's brand new and no
It's
one else has slept in it. So
it's
it's
brand new.
not pilling. It's not like they're just brand new.
Mhm.
And we tell everybody these are brand new. You can take them with you. Like these are yours to take home with you. So that like if somebody's worried about it getting wasted, like take it home with you.
Mhm.
Like we allow everyone to do that. And I will say we're not throwing these sheets away. We do donate them to the cleaning crew and wherever we can find donations. But we make sure we're not just throwing them in the trash unless they need to be thrown away. But we do donate those when we can to make sure that they are getting reused. But we never reuse them for our guests.
And people question that at checkout too. They're like, "Wait, what is this? Am I reading this right with the checkout instructions? Like, I can take the sheets with me?" It's funny.
This wouldn't make sense for a short-term rental because you
No.
got somebody coming for a week. Your costs are going to be high. It wouldn't make sense. But these are somebody that's been here for a few months at a time. Typically, I mean, sometimes 30 days, but most of our guests are staying longer. So it's like 2-3 months. So it's not $14 is not that big of a deal when you're talking about a longer term like that.
Yeah, and like you said, like, we were doing, 4 to 6 turnovers a year. It's not, but yeah, in a
We still
short-term
go through a lot
model.
of sheets. Don't get me wrong, but it's just that's been a huge I guess one of our proprietary things that we do that nobody else does. And I think in my groups that I talk about, I think a lot of people have maybe started doing that. But that's definitely been one of the big things for us. And the other thing is too is laundry. Like washing sheets is a lot of work, and then you got to make sure that they are dry all the way. Then you got to make sure that there are no stains on them. And just having it all in the package and just ready to go makes it so much quicker for us. Makes it quicker for the cleaning
It's
crew.
cut on our cleaning crew time.
Yeah, so that's the other thing is we actually get discounts from our cleaning crew. We have very reasonable turnover cleanings because the turnovers are so much faster. They're not doing any laundry. So even with the towels, we take all the towels and everything, like mattress covers, everything that we are actually keeping, and we just take it, put it in a bag, take it back and wash it. And we have a new set that's dropped off for them. So everything's already washed, laundered, ready to go. So they're just switching it out quick and easy and then running through cleaning the house. So it actually saves us. I think I'd calculate it was like 20 or 30% savings by them not doing laundry versus having them do everything.
Okay, so let's kind of talk through just a quick step-by-step of start to finish with our co-hosting, starting with the initial discovery call that you do when someone reaches out about being working with us as a co-host.
One of the biggest co-hosting lead magnets for us, I guess, is Airbnb. So there is a co-host platform that Airbnb rolled out last year. You have to be a host for a while, so you can't just come into this brand new. You have to be a host. You have to be hosting for a while. You have to have a certain amount of like review ratings and things. There's some different criteria to be able to get admitted to that. And then you can apply, and then they go through their process. And once you're approved, you get put on their co-host platform. So when people come in and are looking for a co-host or they have a new listing, now whenever you post a new listing on Airbnb, there's a pop-up that says, do you need help? Would you like help from a co-host? And then so it kind of triggers people to even know what co-hosting is. But it goes into your area and it's basically an advertisement for your co-hosting services.
Do you have to be a super host or is that like what the criteria is?
I don't remember. We've talked about this before in some of the groups, and there is some criteria I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't think you have to be a super host, but you do have to have a certain level of reviews, which actually may end up making you a super host by default, but you have to be hosting for a certain amount of time and have a certain amount of reviews over the last 12 months or something like that, to where it's like it can't be below a certain rating.
Okay.
So there is some criteria. It's not easy to get into. A lot of people are trying to get into it and it's not easy, but how we've gotten a lot of our leads. Also just networking with realtors and getting, real estate meetups and just kind of getting referrals that way is another good way to get those leads as well. But the way that works, so when somebody calls, I usually do the calls. I always do the calls. Someone will reach out and they'll set up a call and we'll do a discovery call. And the first thing I ask is like, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, tell me what your story is. Because I want to know if we're even a good fit. I don't want to take on something and have expectations or get into a situation that's not even a good fit for us. And I'll try to refer it to somebody else or just say, hey, we're not a good fit. So the first thing is, are you looking to do midterm or short term? Because as soon as somebody says short term and they've got that mindset and that dollar figure, we're kind of out. And I will tell them midterm, I'll show them the difference and show them how the numbers break down. And a lot of those people actually end up converting to midterm once they realize that the short term is not as glorified as you see it from the gurus and stuff online or whatever. A lot of those people do end up coming over to do midterm, but if they're strictly set on short term, like we just won't go there. So find out what they're looking to do. Once we kind of walk them through our process and kind of explain to them what we do and what our advantage is. Again, our advantage is the leads. So if they're in our market and they're worried about leads, that's something that we're really strong at. So that's a huge selling point when I'm doing initial discovery calls. People are worried about filling the property. Well, we've got the leads to be able to do that. So that's kind of our big selling point. But then we'll set up an in-person walkthrough, and we both go do this. This is kind of more where you come in because you got the eye for design.
That's definitely an important piece of it. When we walk the property, we wanna see, some of these properties have already been Airbnbs, they've been short-term rentals, maybe they're switching over, they're converting. We have had some that have been completely, you know, either a brand new property that they purchased that they're just trying to do this with, so they're starting from scratch or they're moving out. It's kind of we have different scenarios in this, and so we walk the property to kinda see, what recommendations are we gonna have? So, where do we need is there any updates we need to make to the property, which I don't think we've really had to do any major updates to any of them. But, we'll recommend things like we should be painting this, right? It should be all one color. It should be neutral. It should be going through with furniture if there's things that need to be switched out. And it doesn't have to be high end furniture, but it just needs to be all cohesive. And it needs to be, I like it all to be neutral. A family can easily come into and make their own if they need, you know, be comfortable, right? It doesn't need to be like you were saying with the short-term rentals where they're more like fun and eye-catching and, geared towards maybe a bachelor party or bachelorette. This needs to feel homey. This needs to be cohesive. There doesn't need to be anything like super loud or, like cute Instagrammable things. Like it doesn't need to be like that. We want all of my big thing is the kitchen needs to be all matching in terms of the silverware, the plates, the cups, like, that's one of our big things is we have to make sure that everything is up to our standards when we have, our properties, right? We keep the same standards in terms of the level of items and products we're putting in the house. That's a big piece of it. What else do you think?
That's important. I think that's kind of why you come in with that. Another thing that is always a big deal is, and I'll just say this, like, one of the big, because we want this to appeal to families, one of the big things that we are aware of because we have small families is if a home has a bathtub or not. If there's no bathtub, we know it's going to be a struggle because most of these leads are families with small children. And if there's no bathtub, that's a big turn off for a family.
That's a
And
really good
people
point.
that don't have kids aren't thinking about that. And they're just thinking, oh, like you said, like the bachelor, bachelorette, trying to make it all appealing to that crowd. Well, you don't need the bathtub in that case. You're just, putting showers in. But if you took out a tub to do that, now you just kill yourself for midterm rentals because there's no family that's going to come in without a tub. It's just facts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the big things too that is another selling point, at least for us, we love a charger for cars. That's a big thing that we recommend, right? And it doesn't have to be something that has to be installed right away. But if we have a guest that comes in that has an electric vehicle, we like to have that be an option that you would add that in. Same thing with items for families. So a pack and play, a crib, some sort of high chair, things that are going to be easily accessible, making the life easier for the families coming in is really important to us.
Especially when you get these insurance claims and somebody is displaced, their life's like turmoil and uncomfortable. You want it to be comfortable. You want them to just be able to come in with their clothes that they have and not have to worry about all these extra things. Everything that they need when they first come in, they should be able to just come crash for that first night, have everything they need, have coffee in the morning, have, toilet paper, all the amenities or all the like basics just taken care of. So that's one thing is on our checklist is making sure that somebody could just come in with a suitcase and be okay for a little while before they need to go buy anything and just be set.
Yeah. And I mean, we've been through that personally, so we know from experience that that's obviously very important. So once we go through and we visit the property, then we do a property analysis where we're running through the different comps in the area. We list through all of our recommendations of, like I said, going through of like making sure everything's the same color, just kind of cleaning things up. If there's any recommendations we have in furniture and whatnot, we put all of that into the property analysis, and then you go through and send over the proposal.
Right. Then we'll send a proposal over with what we charge. And just so you know, like everybody does the co-hosting fees differently. I think we do it differently than most everybody. Like I think we have a very different model, but it's worked well for us. And it's a It lowers the barrier of entry for people wanting to work with us, and so we found that it works really well. What we do is we don't charge an onboarding fee, so there is more setup. Some houses more than others, but there can be a lot of setup in the initial rollout of a property, even in just the listing, optimizing it and getting all the databases, and it's a lot of work on the front end. But we do not charge an onboarding fee. We do 12% of gross rent, which is very reasonable for midterm rental. Long-term rents are usually 10%. Short-term rents are usually 25, sometimes 30. Midterm rent kind of falls in between. I've seen everybody from like 15 to 20. We're kind of on the lower end, I think. But we do have a 1-year commitment. So they have to commit for 1 year. So we know that we're not charging up front, but we're at least getting 1 year of rents or of our fee. We also do a $1,000 minimum per month. So in our market, that's pretty easy to hit. So if a house rents for $8,500, we're hitting that. So we don't want to get where we're renting a bunch of houses that are renting for half of that and running around just doing just as much work and not getting that revenue.
Right. And we do have a performance clause in there as well, too.
Yeah. So our performance clause is in there because one of the big concerns with owners that haven't done this before is, what if my house isn't getting rented and sits vacant? Am I stuck with you for a full year of not renting? I'm like, well, we've never had that happen before, and I hope that doesn't happen. Not that it can't, but we do have a performance clause that if we don't perform and get it rented in the first 90 days, that they can cancel anytime. And we've had situations that we've never actually gotten to that point, but we've had situations, or I should say we have had really hard properties to rent that just there was not a lot of demand. And we give people the option like, hey, like it's just, we've done everything that we've been able to do and with our lead network, and people are just not renting this for different various reasons. And we're happy to let them out because like, I don't want somebody getting stuck. It's not making us any money, and it's not making them any money. I feel bad in that situations. They haven't actually gotten out of it, but we give them the option. It's like, hey, like, we don't want you to feel trapped.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then just some of like our full service, some of the things that we offer. So we have all of our standard operating procedures that we've kind of gone into. We do have, we won't go into it today, but we've got like we're going to do a video on this actually, our supply list and how we use that, how we do that. We have a kind of a unique way of doing all of our consumables and our reusables. So we'll go into that later. But we also offer screening. So we are using AutoHost to screen all of the guests that come in. So it's doing a full, not a background check, but it checks, I think almost more than a background check. It scours the internet for everything on these people. Checks their, their phone numbers and their emails, making sure everything matches up. It's doing ID verification. If there are some red flags that pop up, our system will automatically trigger a background check and a credit check. So we are going to that point if we need to. And then we also get a signed lease. So we are getting a signed lease on all guests that come in. And that's something that we offer as part of our full service to all of our owners. So that's kind of how we set up our co-hosting business. Again, it's pretty new, it's pretty fresh, but it's working, and there's very little overhead.
I'm excited to get more properties. I think that's kind of next on our goal is just to continue to grow that database that we have of properties, especially here in this local area, because like you said, we have such a need for it.
Yeah. And we're looking at getting into some more higher end luxury properties because we're getting leads for that now. And we don't have those properties, or the ones that we do that fit that criteria. We only have like 1 or 2 and they're always booked. So we're looking to kind of build out some of the higher end stuff just because we're getting those leads now. And, now we're getting our processes figured out. We've kind of figured out how we manage everything. Now we're able to kind of, okay, now we can scale this up. Now we've got systems in place to be able to scale this up. And then, we'll eventually bring on somebody else to do all this. Because there's a lot of running around that we still do. We check when the cleaners do the turnover, we go and we double check, make sure everything's done correctly. We're doing usually about 100 pictures before and after check-in for the owners. So we go through just pictures, everything in the cupboards, everything, so that they're getting feedback and they're getting pictures. Is something broken, is something whatever, just so they can see, getting eyes inside, and they're actually getting that feedback directly by seeing the pictures, so they know that their property's getting taken care of. So yeah, it's definitely it's not easy. It's still work. There's still running around you got to do, and it's still a lot of work. But once you have that turnover done, then you might be good for 3 months and only have a few things that you need to take care of during that time.
Right.
I think we've just got a lot of properties, so it seems like we're always doing turnovers now, but it's just part of the fun, I suppose, part of the madness.
You're always doing them. I wish I could say I was helping more with those, but no, you're doing all the turnovers. It's tough with those little ones home.
Yeah. That's all I got for today.
That's all I've got too. You haven't been reading much lately.
Well, I have.
Have
I'm
you?
still reading the same one. I'm working on Ryan Pineda's Wealthy Way. It's actually a really good book. I've been doing that when I'm able to get my workouts in, which we haven't been sleeping much, so I haven't been working out as much lately because of our amazing kids. But that's a conversation for another time. Like and subscribe to our podcast. Share it if you're finding value in this. If we're saying anything that's bringing value, like share it. We love and give us feedback. We love hearing feedback. Leave us a review, unless we're doing a bad job. But if we're doing a good job, leave us a review. We're just trying to get the word out there and kind of see there's more topics that we can talk about. If people have other strategies or other ideas, we're bringing on. We have a lot of guests that are coming on in January and February with just different strategies and ideas, things that we're not doing. So we're really excited to kind of learn more about those strategies. And if you know someone that's doing something you think would be a good fit for our show, please reach out. Let us know.
Yes, we'd love to hear from them. And any questions that you have on things that we've talked about, please always feel free to send us a DM or an email. But we're just excited to go into this new year, 2026.
Year of the horse.
Year of the horse. Lots of fun things coming and just excited. I don't know, something about the new year just feels like obviously a refresh and
Yeah, it'll be good.
it'll be good.
All right, get out there and make it happen.
Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Rebuilding the Dream Studios.